So, hi everybody, and welcome to our webcast for May 27, 2016. My name is Christian Debré, and this is Amy Asbrook, the director of Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet.
Hello.
Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet is a non-religious organization by and for people with disabilities and our allies. Our goal is to inform, unify, and give voice to the disability rights opposition to assisted suicide, euthanasia, and other ending of life practices that discriminate against people with disabilities. So, today's topics: speech for June 1, okay? Because Amy will give a speech on the Parliament Hill in Ottawa. Disabled activist protest for the film Me Before You that you may have heard of. Okay, and the third one is the announcement EPC June 1 event on Parliament Hill, which is related to the speech. So I hand it up to Amy.
Thanks.
Who will do most of the speaking today.
Okay, thanks. All right, speech for June 1. Parliament was in recess this week, so there was no action on Bill C-14. MPs are expected to approve the assisted suicide law early next week and send it to the Senate, which is debating a similar bill. Ultimately, the two bills will have to be reconciled. There's little hope that the law will be adopted in time for the June 6th deadline.
Yeah, if I understand well, the Senate and the government have both received a project of law in the same time
The bill,
for the bill. So this bill become not exactly the same because there's different proposition in different place who will apply on this proposition.
Different amendments that have been added to each version, so that the two versions will have to be made to be the same in order for the bill to be adopted by both chambers of the Parliament. And in order to do that, each chamber will have to adopt its version, and then there will have to be a meeting between a committee to make the changes so that the same version is considered by both houses of the Parliament. On June 1st, the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition and other groups are sponsoring a rally on Parliament Hill from noon to 1:30 p.m. The goal of the protest is to voice opposition to assisted suicide and euthanasia, and to call on Parliament to ensure protections for vulnerable persons in any law regulating the practice of assisted suicide and euthanasia. Following a speech that I will be making before the rally, or at the rally, I should say.
Yeah.
TVNDY is affiliated with the Council of Canadians with Disabilities, which has been fighting for disability rights for 40 years. CCD, along with other disability rights groups, intervened in the Carter case to oppose assisted suicide and euthanasia. We intervened because there can be no free choice to die, while people with disabilities don't have a free choice in where and how they live, and because any law that makes disability the first eligibility criterion for assisted suicide and euthanasia is discriminatory.
Yes, it is.
We intervened because directing suicidal people without disabilities to suicide prevention services, while disabled people who want to die are helped to do so, is also discriminatory. We intervened because we know that safeguards don't work in the places where assisted suicide and euthanasia are legal. We intervened for a lot of reasons, and we lost. So now we have our work cut out for us. The first job is to make sure that the law regulating assisted suicide and euthanasia is tight enough to prevent the worst abuses that go on in other jurisdictions.
We need protection. We need protection. It's supposed to be a manifestation.
Yeah, okay. That means providing vulnerability assessments to identify and protect people who might be induced to commit suicide because of their circumstances. It means guaranteeing effective palliative care to every Canadian, not just the 30% who now have access to it. It means providing home care access modifications and personal assistance services to enable people with disabilities to live in their homes with real autonomy rather than being forced into institutions. It means having an arm's length review of all eligibility determinations for assisted suicide and euthanasia. Our second challenge will be to track the damage that individuals and Canadian society as euthanasia and assisted suicide are practiced. We will need to document what happens to Canadians and their families when safeguards fail. Finally, we will need to fight against expansion of the law. Already, there is talk of extending assisted suicide and euthanasia to children and people with dementia. But we also need to guard against the unofficial extension of the practice, imposition of do not resuscitate orders and life-ending acts without explicit request, and the idea that life with a disability is a fate worse than death. The struggle must now enter a new and more difficult phase, a phase of vigilance and resistance. We cannot abandon disabled people to the subtle and not so subtle pressures of the back wards where the only viable choice appears to be death. We must continue to fight for assistance to live, not to die. So that's my speech.
A good one.
Hopefully it isn't too long and hopefully people will appreciate it. We also had it written out and gave it during the French web emission so that people will get to hear it, and we'll send it out when I send out our weekly text of the webcast. So the next item is disabled activists protest me before you. And then you might remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about this film, which is about a man and a woman. The man is a quadriplegic. He's been injured. And he falls in love with the woman who's taking care of him. And he ends up deciding that because he's a quadriplegic, his life is not worth living. And he goes to Dignitas in Switzerland to commit suicide. And he gives her lots of money so she can go live her dreams. And a lot of people with disabilities are protesting this because it sends the message that life with a disability is a fate worse than death.
Which is not.
Right, exactly.
And it is not a noble way to go.
Right.
Okay.
There's no beauty in self-sacrifice. There's, that's ridiculous. There's
maybe in the war, somebody sacrificed himself for a group. It may have a kind of glory or something like that. But simple suicide from one people in the society, this is not the solution.
Right, and the problem is that this isn't the only film like that. This is a plot device that's used in lots of films, and so it conveys the message over and over again that almost every time you see a disabled person in a film, it's somebody who's going off to have assisted suicide.
And anyway, it's the complete opposite of self-sacrificing for a group of people in some kind of war. In this situation, it's just the opposite. When you sacrifice yourself, is to kill somebody else. That's the way to do.
Yeah. Okay. In the run-up to the opening of the film, Me Before You, disability activists are characterizing the movie as a disability snuff film. And a snuff film is a film that shows people being killed. Activists from the US and the United Kingdom and elsewhere have flooded social media with commentaries on the film. So there's been a lot of action on Twitter and on Facebook and all sorts of social media to draw attention to the problems with the film. At a Twitter event featuring one of the film's co-stars, Sam Claflin, activists bombarded Claflin with questions about a non-disabled actor portraying a disabled person and the effect of the character's suicide on real disabled people and how that can have a negative effect. And it's really obvious listening to some of the responses that they just didn't even think about it. And this is including the person who wrote the book on which the movie is based. She also wrote the screenplay. And she just has no idea that, you know, what she's doing could cause any problems. And she has no sensitivity about this issue at all.
So this film is a kind of proof that people without disability think that having a disability is a fate worse than death, which is not.
Right, exactly. In addition, members of Not Dead Yet UK attended the London premiere, chanting and handing out flyers to fans and those on the red carpet. NDY members held a large banner and offered chants such as "Assistance to live, not to die," and "Rights, not tragedy," while the film's cast and creators posed for pictures and signed autographs.
So they do the news.
Right.
And news is only something like 12 hours.
Right.
If you don't do the news, you lose everything.
Right. So they put themselves in a place where they would be seen, where their chants would be heard, and because the media were already at the red carpet, and so yes, they got into the mainstream news. The London protests drew coverage from the mainstream press, bringing the debate beyond social media. Activists are now preparing for more protests on the film's opening day, June 3rd. And one of the things that they're preparing is what's called a thunderclap, which is a whole lot of tweets being, Twitter being bombarded with tweets about the same issue at the same time. And that's going to happen at 5 p.m. British Standard Time
Yeah.
On June 3rd. So that's about noon here. So that's what's going to happen on the 3rd. And we're going to keep circulating the news articles that have come out about this issue because it's an important one. And like I said, this kind of movie comes out every few years and it raises a lot of issues and, you know, it needs to be addressed.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Announcement. June 1 rally sponsored by the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition. As we said, there's going to be a rally on the 1st of June from noon to 1:30 at Parliament Hill. In conjunction with the June 1st rally,
we will be there.
Yes, we will be there, obviously, since I'm going to be speaking at the rally. In conjunction with the June 1st rally, a bus will be taking people from Montreal to Ottawa. A $20 donation is requested to cover the cost of the bus, which leaves Outremont at 8:30 a.m. and returns at 5 p.m. To reserve a place, call 438-931-1233. That's 438-931-1233. And you have to call and reserve a place by the end of the day today. So give them a call and you can reserve a place on the bus that goes from Montreal to Ottawa.
And the $20 is a wish.
Right.
And if you are too poor to give it, you're still welcome.
Right, exactly. For more information about the rally itself, contact the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition at 1-877-439-3348, and that's English only. Or you can call Living with Dignity, and that's 1-438-931-1233. So there are a lot of reasons to oppose the legalization of assisted suicide and euthanasia. Here are just a few. First, it's unnecessary because everyone already has the option to commit suicide or refuse medical care and have palliative sedation on demand. Also, it's discriminatory because while people without disabilities receive suicide prevention services if they express a wish to die, people with disabilities will be encouraged and insisted to kill themselves. Choice is an illusion. The choice to die cannot be free as long as people with disabilities don't have the choice in where and how to live. And finally, safeguards don't work. Where the practices are legal, safeguards don't prevent people with disabilities from being wrongly killed. If you want more information about the topics that we talked about today, you can visit us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujourvivant, not dead yet. You can also visit our website at tvndy.ca. You can send me an email at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow us on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks to Christian for helping out.
Thank you, Amy.
And thanks all of you for listening. Until next time.
Take care.
Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.